Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another very special edition of the Geeks Who Like Sports Leaderboard interviews. As always, I'm Ray Carcillo in beautiful Los Angeles, California. To my best friend in the entire world over in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Lee Elias, and our special guest today over in Vancouver, Canada, way up north, the one and only Matt Schmidt. Matt, how are you doing today?
Guys, good. Thank you. What an intro. That was amazing. Thanks so much for having me.
We are thrilled to have you. For those of you who don't know, Matt, of course, is a film producer. He's an entrepreneur, and he is the current CEO of Alpha Esports. And he is very much like us. He is a huge geek, and we absolutely love talking to him. We are thrilled to have you on the show, Matt, for the first time, and hopefully not the last. But as an obligatory for first-time guests, we have to ask you the origin story question. How did you get your start in entrepreneurship and then later in esports? What set you down that path?
That is a really great question. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and through high school, whether it was making mixtapes and doing the art on them, or T-shirts, or throwing parties, a lot of it centered around events. And I always had jobs, and I worked as a busboy in the restaurant industry, and I worked at a community center doing youth camps and stuff. And I was always one of those kids that was like running from one job to the next job and the next job. And the event stuff was really the genesis of it. And the irony is I wasn't a big party guy, and I wasn't really social, but I had friends that were DJs that could play music, and I would design the flyer art and the graphics. And I was always a huge art nerd. And I started these events that really led to an event company and down a road of food and beverage in that world. And I always wanted to work in film. Film's been a huge passion of mine, and I've been a storyteller, and I've been writing screenplays since my 20s. But to start, like a lot of people, I started as an assistant, and I was getting people coffee, and I worked in the art department, which is like production design, so the visual set or location or the way we kind of create the world, which was a lot of fun because you go through these Rolodexes in your mind of all the stuff you've seen and references of who are these characters? Where do they live? What does their place look like? And the thing with the film industry is a bit of feast and famine. So you'd work on a show, and then once it wraps, you don't know when your next show is. So I always had the hospitality stuff and the events to kind of fall back on. But it was weird because I was doing both, and there'd be people I knew in one world that would see me in the other world, and they're like, wait a minute. Like they thought I had like a twin brother or something, or vice versa. There'd be people from the event space that like see me on set at like 6 a.m., like, showing up to the circus and all the trucks and that.
Sounds very familiar. Very familiar.
Yeah. but I got to meet all these amazing people, and it kind of felt like Forrest Gump in a way, that there would just be these connections, and it's super serendipitous. And I had friends that worked in technology, and Vancouver has like a huge film community here because we're right above Los Angeles. It's the same time zone, and it's a very diverse locations too. Like you could have like mountains and beaches and snow or forest within like a half an hour drive. So a lot of stuff gets shot here. And we have the tax credits here, which is a big part of the business side of it. But it's funny with the locations of like watching like Jackie Chan's Rumble in the Bronx, and there's like beautiful BC mountains in the back. Doesn't look like New York. But,
those aren't the Catskills, folks.
They'll never know. Yeah.
Back though, the hoverboard actually ran over a buddy of mine who was like an extra, and he got paid a bit extra for that sequence. That's our English pay. But I had a lot of friends that worked in animation and visual effects and tech, and a lot of them were working in gaming. Vancouver has a huge gaming community, so big companies like EA and Radical. And when all that started shifting to the mobile space, it spawned all these other little startups. And Vancouver has a really great gaming community. So for some of them, I would be a consultant and an advisor and just open up my network or just kind of share ideas. And I didn't start producing films till, 8 years ago. So I still feel like I'm just getting started with some of this stuff. And on the esports side, a lot of kind of what we do in the tech and the business side is trend forecasting and kind of looking at what people are doing and what the next emerging markets are. And I think this industry is still in its infancy. And I feel like the engagement is so high. These people are so passionate. It's so amazing. And the tech is like a decade ahead of everything we're seeing. But I feel like the biz dev and the branding and everything else is like a decade behind. Right. So it's still kind of catching up, or even how it's represented or how it's respected or how these people, just the feeder verticals around the industry as a whole are still kind of playing catch up.
Right.
And, you know, we have a lot of meetings with really smart people that understand esports. Then I have a lot of meetings with people that are like, what the heck is esports? You know, like, and, but they want to understand it. And, you know, people from brands or advertising or that. And I think a lot of it is taking shape. And I'm one of those entrepreneurs where I don't have the answers, but I'm a really good listener, and I like listening to really smart people around us. And even in our esports world, we've pivoted a few times, but I think the real winners in the space are going to be people that have these social communities where you're connecting people socially around gaming.
Yeah. You know, what's amazing about what you just said is this. Esports reminds me of like 2008, 2009 social media, where, you know, Facebook was getting an IPO and all these things were happening. And I remember people telling me about Facebook's IPO, like, don't dive in on that because it's just a fad. And I was like, there's 1 billion people on it. There's 1/8 of the planet is on this platform, and you think it's a fad. Well, it's going to go away. I'm like, dude, when you're dealing with stats like a certain percentage of the population of the planet, and I jumped in right away. I don't regret that, obviously. Yeah. But what amazes me about esports right now, and this is why I said it reminds me of that time period, there are arenas being built. There are celebrities getting involved. Obviously, Gamerz Arena is something we're going to talk about. Things like that are coming up. It's all over the place, and you can go to a business-centric place, and people will be like, it's not going to pick up. I mean, who watches people play video games? I'm like, what do you mean? Who watches people play? Have you been on to, like, these people are crazy to me. It's like, I think anyone who's not able to invest, whatever that investment is, time, creativity, money, into that world right now is crazy. I mean, Facebook, social media was obvious to me 10 years ago. This is the next thing that's obvious to me.
Totally.
And then, Matt, I'll tell you this too, like Philadelphia, where I am, we're getting an esports arena and a team. And I tell people, like major sports fans here, and they don't even know about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a building. You know what I mean? Like, how is this
any 12-year-old about how they're spending their time and what they're on? And it's so social and it's so amazing. Like, people have these cliche images of what a esports player is or someone who plays a lot of video games, and it's not that.
No.
Like, this is everybody, and it's very diverse. And we as a company, that we've been talking about that a lot, as far as just representing that of kind of who these people are and telling their stories. But the Facebook thing's crazy because I remember you needed a university URL to even have it. So it was only for students, and it was kind of exclusive.
05.
Before that, it was MySpace. It always get cluttered pages.
Yeah.
And then even I remember like Instagram, I'm like, oh, okay, it's like the mobile upload. Or Twitter, it's like, okay, it's your status update. So there's all these offshoots of the same DNA, like fractaling out. And I believe video games are the next social media. They already are.
Easily. And I'll take it a step farther, is that, you know, I have a son who's going to be 7 soon. And this is one of the things that I think is going to change this dynamic, right? He loves gaming. Ray got him his first Switch, which I tease Ray about all the time, but he loves gaming. I love gaming with him, right? Now, I'm in this age group that I grew up with video games, and I also grew up with parents who sometimes, not all the time, they were great, but usually got that, like, don't play that all day. It's not good for you.
For
right?
Sure.
So we got a whole generation of people my age that were kind of inundated with, like, oh, don't play it all day. It'll hurt you. And my tune on that has never been that. Like, this is creativity. This is strategy. Yeah. You know, I do agree you can't play it 15 hours a day. You got to get out. You got to eat.
What?
You gotta move around. Yeah, I know, Ray. Sorry. Spoiler alert, Ray. No, but here's the thing.
You're just telling me this now?
No, Ray, you be you. Right? But Matt, here's the thing. I think what's going to happen is that there's a crop of parents now, like me, and then there's my kids, right? And I don't think games are a bad thing. And I think that that's going to be the turning point. I think that's when I speak to not everybody, but most people over 45 or 50. They just don't get it. Like, well, why would video games be a thing? And I'm like, I grew up with this. Of course it's going to be a thing. So I think we're at that just generational divide.
100%. And think about Facebook, like our moms back in the day. Like, they don't understand it. And then 10 years later, they're like, Mom just added you on Facebook. And she's like chatting with Auntie, and they're like, it's like, and these early adopters of the way these young people are connecting and chatting and strategizing and the team games and the battle house, it's amazing.
You make friends around the world.
You have a well-rounded life and do other stuff 100%. Like, you could look at kids back in the day, they would just draw all day and, you know, get outside, go do something. Or like, if you're just writing stories all day, sure, you should have a well-rounded life, but investing a bunch of time in that, who knows where that's going to go now. And you see these kids getting signed. Over 80 American colleges are offering esports scholarships now. And even the pros, so they're doing these studies. Like I just read a report last week about your heart rate levels while you're playing and your cortisol levels. And it's stress inducing because you're intense and you're focused. So the pros now are on strict dietary regimes. They're working out, they're training, they're physically training for their sport, for their craft. They're getting a certain level of sleep and relaxing. And then, so they're fresh while they're playing. And I'm reading this and I'm like, this makes a lot of sense. It totally makes sense. If they're playing at that level and there's those stakes, it's so interesting where it's going. But for me, and what we're working on with Alpha Esports and Gamerz Arena, which is our core asset, our platform that we can talk a bit about, the pro elite gamers and that world is the barrier to entry is really high, and there's not a lot of them. And there's a lot of people focusing on that market segment as a business. And I think it's a good business, but it's tricky. I think there's a lot of other people that want to play competitively at different levels socially. Maybe they win stuff, maybe they excel, get some pointers and stats and how they're doing and progress, or maybe they don't, but they should all kind of find their niche.
Yeah, or a community. Just find a community with so many people are looking for right now.
Sure. A lot of my friends, one of my best friends, he was like, I have a special relationship with my nephew just going on Call of Duty Warzone. I see if he's online, and we chat, and he's like, I wouldn't have that if it wasn't for that game. And they have this bond. And I'm like, that's so amazing. Yeah. So, okay, what were the first video games you guys played growing up? The first one that you like obsessed about?
Well, the first one for me is easy. It was the original Super Mario Brothers on the NES. Okay, and my grandmother had an NES actually in her basement. That was like one of 3 games she had. It was Mario, Tetris. Yeah, like Mario, Duck Hunt, and Tetris. That's all she had. And like I was obsessed with Mario Brothers. And then finally, similarly, it's kind of part of the reason why I gave Lee's son Logan a Switch on his 4th birthday was that my family saw how obsessed I was with it as a toddler, and that my father got me the NES for my 4th birthday, and then after that it was Legend of Zelda and Mega Man and all of those, and and then it was Super Nintendo, and obviously I've been doing this my whole life now. So, but original Super Mario Brothers, that was the one. So
yeah, you know, Ray and I are about the same age. So Mario Brothers had a place. So I love playing that. But I'll tell you right now, the first time I put in Zelda, and the screen rose and that music played, and this is not a shot at the Mario Brothers music. It's very fun and poppy, right? Something changed in me. Yeah, I'd let you sing that. Something changed in me when I saw that. Because I remember it was the first time I played a game and I felt something. Like Mario was fun, but this one I felt something. And then the story started to unravel, and I have to save Hyrule, and I have to get this thing called the Triforce. And there's 3 pieces, and there's a princess. And I remember the first time in my life I was like, this is a world I'm escaping to. And I didn't know I was doing it at the time. Mm-hmm. But that game really served as the basis for a lot of directions I would go when it came to storytelling, even in my own life and the way I do things now.
And you were emotionally invested in that story.
100%.
And Mario, I love Mario, but like, okay, I'm a plumber. I have a brother. There's a princess, but like, I'm this plumber. Right. But Zelda, like it was a world. It was world building, which was amazing. And I love games like that. We had Sega. So I was more of a Sonic guy, and all my friends. And my mom didn't know which one to get. She's like, one of these things. And I remember Sega had this game that like not a lot of people know it, but it was called Echo the Dolphin.
Yes. Oh yeah, we know about Echo.
Yeah. It was super hard, but you're this.
It was a maze. It was this ridiculous maze.
But you had to save the ocean. That was the amazing part about it.
Yeah. And it was and like a bit of a double entendre of like the echo and the sonar, but then ecology and you're eco-friendly, and you're like it was a weird game. And I remember playing that. And then
did you play the Tides of Time? Echo the Tides of Time? I love that game too.
How do you know Echo? Not a lot of people know Echo.
Oh, we know Echo.
Yeah, we know Echo.
You mess with Echo. I like that. And then I remember these CD-ROM games. I don't know how I had it, but there was a game called Myst.
Yeah.
You dropped onto an island, and you're just there, and you have to figure out what it is. There's no time constraints. There's no antagonist. And I remember years later reading that J.J. Abrams was inspired by Myst when he created Lost. And I remember like the hatch and these things. And I'm like, this is so
makes a lot of sense suddenly.
Yeah.
Then going back to what you're thinking with the storyline of like, I need to figure out why I'm here, get to where I need to go to gather these things. And there was this, this linear narrative that you're traveling through. which was really cool. And then I remember the kid down the street, I didn't have it, but Super NES, when Bond came out, GoldenEye, I mean.
Oh, yeah, on the
yeah.
N64.
First-person shooters before
yeah.
that, like Duke Nukem Doom, very, you know, linear, you're running out of stuff, you have the nut, and it was like cool, but GoldenEye was like next, and it was social. So like, okay, I got next, winner stays in, and these kids were so good because they played it way more than me, so like they would know where you respawn, and then the moment I respawn, you're like, dude, it's not even fair. Like, give me like a head start or something.
I mean, that's really the generation where esports really started to come about, because the N64, you had GoldenEye, you had Smash Brothers. Obviously, you're starting to get more intense stuff with Street Fighter at that point.
Killer Instinct Gold.
Yeah, like the Super Nintendo / N64 era was really when you started to see people like, you know what, we can do fighting tournaments and we can do GoldenEye tournaments and first person shooters, and then so that's when the competition, because that's when I started to get into competition.
And the weapons selection got more complicated, and there's more buttons. I could zoom into a scope, zoom out, do those things, and it started getting and where it's at now is like wild. Like,
Matt, I'll tell you this. It's like what the N64 brought in, and GoldenEye really specifically, is that's where we changed from the high score to being talented. Right, because like all the gaming tournaments before that was like, okay, who get the best high score in the fastest amount of time?
Yeah, who can get the kill screen on Pac-Man or Donkey Kong or whatever. Yeah,
and all of a sudden it was like, how many kills
every week?
Right. But yeah, no, it was amazing to grow up when we all did, because we got to experience those games, and like I said, GoldenEye was a huge part of my life. I always love when people say, well, I knew what I was doing my Friday night. I was like, Friday, try Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, every night I was playing that game. Right, and then Ocarina of Time came out, Zelda, and then you know, I thought the original Zelda was good, and then that to this day I've said is the greatest game ever made, in my opinion.
You know,
one
of the quotes for sure. And GoldenEye had the strategy stuff too, so like setting mines or setting things up and
Oh yeah, and you had to make sure, Odd Job was outlawed. You couldn't have anyone play Odd Job.
No,
it's unfair. Yeah.
Who throws a hat? Honestly.
And he's also short. He's also like
by my screen.
Oh, man.
Like where gaming has got to now, going back to what you were saying, Lee, as a social media, like it's so socially connected. What we've seen with our platform, Gamerz Arena, is like our community on Discord, and they're like family. You know, we'll have our own bracket tournaments where it scrubs through the data to see, but then there's the self-policing ones, and it's very accurate because these people are held accountable, because they'll get put on blast if you know, and that almost becomes part of it. So it's interesting, like when I was a kid, whether it was in the laundromat, like playing Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, people are putting their quarters on, like I got next.
Yeah.
So many kids will not get this reference, and the winner stays in. Or it's a group of kids playing GoldenEye. I see the same DNA in what they're doing now. It's just so much bigger. It's better. It's more diverse. But it's that same. It's competitive. It's social, and there's some stakes on the line. Whether those stakes are bragging rights, or those kids are excelling to a career in esports and they're actually winning money or having sponsorships or creating content on their Twitch streams, and they're their own content creators, which I think is amazing. Like, people didn't have that option before, where media companies owned the one outlet, and it was so like old school, dusty, linear. Going back to Facebook, it's like the newspaper business is just like gulp. Like now it's like, you know, like media, if you ask the average young person, do they pay for cable or do they just stream?
Right.
And these stream.
My favorite one is Yellow Pages versus Google. That's my favorite one. Like, it's the same thing, but people don't recognize it. It's talking about $100 million industry that lasted 100 years and then died within 10. It's amazing.
But like, to your guys' points, like it takes time, especially for the older generation, to get on board with this. I mean, I remember when I was at ESPN, you know, I've been in the games industry now for over the most part, better part of over a dozen years. And when I was at ESPN and I started out at ESPN Video Games, I was kind of like, yo, guys, we should be covering like tournaments and stuff like that. And there was a lot of guys, there was so much pushback. They're like, no, this isn't going to be a big deal. And now ESPN, on ESPN2, you've got, you know, League of Legends championships and the Overwatch League and all this other stuff. And it's become so big. You got Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, owns an Overwatch League team. Like, it's like the Boston Bruins ownership group owns an Overwatch League team. It's like, it's gotten to the point, it does sometimes take time to catch up to, even though I'm going to say we were ahead of the curve because we all saw this coming. But it just exactly, yes, exactly. It is interesting, and it's also even within the industry, like you mentioned earlier. I want to go back to a point where you said about the marketing, where it's like you have this so much technology and all these guys at the forefront who are still pushing things forward, whether it's the likes of like John Carmack or Tim Sweeney at Epic or whoever, and they're still pushing things forward, or even Parker Lucky for Oculus, right, with VR. Like you have these guys at the forefront of technology, but there's still a group within marketing, and I know because I work with a marketing team now a little bit, who are still a little bit behind the times because they still don't know quite where they're aiming for, right? Because they still think that the people who have the money are the people who aren't necessarily playing the games a lot. But that's kind of shifting now as the average gaming age is our age. It's early 30s now, and when we have the money, I want my PSVR, I want my headsets, and I want my systems, and I know what I want, and I'm willing to spend that money. So hopefully the marketing and other things will start to, and the older gen will catch up now.
I think it will, and it's amazing that all these big names and big companies are pouring money into the space. I think it's really great, but I think a lot of them are still kind of scratching their heads trying to figure out what the business model is.
Right, it's an investment.
Is it to just own a team? Okay, I'm going to hire the best players, and we're going to sell logos on a jersey and sponsorship dollars, or is it to own these websites like a media company? We have X amount of followers and content and that. And again, I think the big winners in the space are going to be the people that own social communities. Right. And lifestyle brands around those communities. And I think streaming games, cross-platform games, where the tournament, the arena really becomes the game itself, because the games are going to come and go and different titles will come. And we've seen that with mods branching out, becoming the next game and the next wave.
Like PUBG, yeah.
Exactly. And but really giving the power back to the gamers and giving them the tools and the value and whatever they want, even their own stats and analytics and stuff to progress, has been fun for us to kind of troubleshoot or look at other companies and small acquisitions that we're going to vend in to our tech. So even our platform, so Gamerz Arena, it's cross-platform, multi-game tournament platform, free-to-play, freemium model, but we just launched like a week ago Gamerz Arena Plus. So it's a monthly subscription service, so think like Amazon, Netflix, and in that, players are getting access to bigger, better tournaments, better prizes, peer-to-peer skill-based betting. And most importantly, they're getting this dashboard with all of their stats and their analytics so they can kind of progress. We're also toying with some tech that will scrub through their Twitch stream and pick out their highlight reel. So condense it down to like 15, 20 seconds of their highlight reel so they can share that to social media. And within the Plus community, we're really looking and listening to kind of what they want to see and them organizing their own tournaments amongst their own teams. So that kind of spawned this whole other vertical that we're toying with that we're calling a GAS model, GAAS, Gaming as a Service, a play on SaaS. And companies, so like I have a lot of these like film buddies that work with, big visual effects houses here in Vancouver, and they're already doing this naturally, but they're doing it with like an email thread or a WhatsApp group and an Excel sheet, and they're organizing their own tournaments. And I'm like, we could do this. Like, we have the tech to do this. We'll onboard all you guys, pick your game, pick your frequency, and we'll organize your whole tournament. And companies started being like, we would love that, because everyone's working from home. It's COVID. And, we're promoting team building and connectivity and that. But if anything, it's just fun. It's just awesome. Yeah, so these players are playing each other. They're forming their own teams. The company, the HR, whatever, can offer prizes or things, or we can work with them on that. And for us, it's been a big way to just onboard a lot of users and really get data as we beta test it and work it out. And I think that's going to be a much bigger vertical of organizing these larger bracket tournaments for organizations.
You know what this reminds me of? And I love using historical context to prove everyone's point. It reminds me of rotisserie baseball in the 1980s, when these guys would just get their newspaper, get the stats, and literally follow their fantasy teams on a piece of paper. For those who don't know, rotisserie sports is what fantasy sports is today.
100%.
Right? And it took 20 years of that before it went online, and then it became the multi-billion-dollar industry that it is. And like we're
already doing it. They're already doing it, but they did it in a more efficient way.
Right. And like I said, that's what you're doing with Gamerz Arena and everything, and I love it. And, here's the other funny part about it, because we always get this crowd. And again, we have a great community, by the way, and we always compliment them because the Geeks Esports community, that's why we made the show, because Ray and I figured there has to be other people out there that like
more than just us two.
Right. And our community has proved this right. But one of the things
we have one more now as of today.
Yes.
We'll take it. One of us. One of us. But, what's funny about what you said is like, okay, and follow me here. Okay, we're charging for Gamerz Arena Plus, and there's people go, oh, I'm not paying for that, and I'm like, you will put your kid in a $2,000 a year hockey program, which is probably affordable. All right, when they have the opportunity to have a similar experience, although maybe not physically, athletically, but like you said, team building, growing up together, because games are a vehicle for growth, especially in a team environment. Sure. Like, and that's one of the things that I try and work on, because like one of the things I've done a long time is I do a lot of speaking, but I do a lot of team bonding, team building work with sports teams, and I've been trying to apply that now to the gaming world because it's the same thing. Teams are teams. It doesn't matter what they're doing, and it's like I think that's the turn, and I think it's our parental generation that's going to change this, because it's like I want my kid to game in a healthy way and in the community.
And I think there's something really healthy with being in a state of play.
Right. Absolutely.
And what they call flow state. And there's so many different versions of flow, but letting kids or people or anyone just find that flow and just play and relax, because then you're firing your brain in that way. And then you go back to another task, and you might think differently about it. Right. Just like what you were saying when you were playing Zelda and music came up and it's this world and it blew your mind. It sparks that imagination, and then you are now a more creative person as an adult because of that part of your journey, I think. Totally. So it's like, yeah.
Not to get psychological too, but like I'm a big believer in Ray's heard this too many times, but like I'm a big believer in two things. One is that you have to stay in the present moment. Yeah. You have to focus on only the things that you can control, right? Those are like my governing factors. Like you said about Zelda or my son or anybody here when we play games, it automatically puts you in the zone. It puts you in the moment, which is a major human skill that we mostly lack on a daily basis as people. Most people cannot stay in the moment. But man, like you said, and Ray was doing the music, the Zelda theme comes off, I'm in. The game turns on, I'm in. The thing is, can you imagine if we could apply that to different aspects of our life? And most of the time, my son is screaming, which he doesn't do too often to his credit, but like we turn the game off, and he's not upset so much that he's not playing it. So he's out of the moment, right? I was doing something, like I was in something.
Present, he's in it, yeah.
Yeah. So there's so much more benefit to this world than people realize. It's just not as simple as like this is your brain on drugs, that's not where we're at anymore. Sorry, Ray, go ahead.
Talk about aging us.
Oh yeah, by the way, Ray, I appreciate you saying I was in my early 30s. That made me feel good. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but it's true. I mean, I think that's one of the great things about Gamerz Arena is that when we mentioned this briefly earlier, is that it creates all that with the environment and the community and the competition and the team building, but it lowers the barrier of entry. And nothing else. Because I mean, we've seen Booga win $3 million at the Fortnite tournament. We've seen, Team Liquid or whatever go and run or Team Optic, do the reverse sweep in Call of Duty. But those guys are the pros, right? It's like watching the Dallas Cowboys or the New York Giants or the New York Yankees or whoever, right? The Philadelphia Flyers.
To pick them. Thank you.
Yeah, like whether it's the polar opposite end of that spectrum, and it's like. Mm-hmm. My wife and her staff having a Mario Kart tourney for prizes on a Friday or whatever, and we organize that bracket and have like funny screen grabs and things and stuff after. Or it's who is the next ninja or the next big pro, and we looked at a lot of these big tournaments, and they'll have all these entries. People that make it, and the people that don't, they just don't, and they're like, okay, peace, you're gone. But like, what about these kind of farm leagues or feeder engines? Leagues and teams and however far they make it. We're actually working with a couple universities on a project that's kind of in stealth mode right now, but on that kind of scouting metric, but also a bit of a discovery engine for new talent, new players, and giving them tools to kind of grow and excel and in whatever version they want to be. Even maybe they don't want to be a pro player, maybe they want to be a newscaster or a content creator or something else. Let's help them on that journey, because they're going to be the next generation in it. And I don't really see a lot of that in the industry. There's a few people doing a few niche things really well, but kind of connecting them all, like just being the kind of Switzerland of competitive gaming for different levels, really.
I love
Well,
that.
that's just that there isn't really a minor leagues right now for esports, right? It's you have to either make such an impact on leaderboards and in multiplayer, something that somebody notices you, like you, and it has to be a truly monumental impact, or it has to be a something you can do single player like Fortnite, where you just keep winning, or it needs to be like like you mentioned, there's colleges now that are starting to offer esports programs, and they're sort of working, but there's not a true pipeline to go from
100%.
your mom's basement to Team Optic. And I
And
only
if
say that
you
because
wanna
I spent
look
many
up-
years in my mom's basement, so I'm not anybody who lives in my mom's basement. So.
If you want to look up the stats of other players or how they are, and the beauty of it is, as an industry, we're not reinventing the wheel here. The tech, sure, that's all new, and it's coming at us very fast. But what we're talking about right now, conventional sports has paved the way beautifully.
Right.
Yes.
And if we look at the journey of a high school athlete through college, through that and scouting, like the amount of energy they put into their stats and their data is unprecedented.
And youth
It's
development.
film study. You're introducing film study to video games, which
Yeah.
why hasn't it happened before?
Yeah,
There's video in the title.
Yeah,
We're doing
I
it.
always love it when people say like, "What? Yeah, so kids just watch other kids play video games?" And I'm like, "Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we do." I watch Ray play on his Twitch stream almost
Yes.
3 to 5 times. a
As
week.
they turn back and like watch a cooking show or like
yeah,
a travel show
You
or
can
like
watch other people make food,
oh.
and you can be making food.
Yeah.
like, you watch other humans do stuff because you're fascinated in it.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah. Like, 'cause
Yeah.
you're
You
impressed
watch
at how
hockey?
good they are with it.
Do
doing
just
that
go
for a
play
long
hockey.
time.
yeah.
Stop being a hater.
Again, things stay different, things stay the same. I can't wait till like 90 years from now to hear what our kids are saying
Oh.
about like, well, you're just gonna watch him do that holographic concert, not actually go to a concert.
Yeah.
Is that what you do? When I was a kid, I went to see people watch music, and then there was a pandemic, and that just feel that. Jumping back into Gamerz Arena real quick. So Gamerz Arena has attracted some professional athletes. We had the pleasure of speaking to Eddie Lack of the formerly of Vancouver Canucks, but all over the NHL. It was one of our favorite interviews to date. Just to kick off the conversation about how you get athletes involved, the thing that stuck out to me about Eddie Lack, he told us the story about when he was younger.
He didn't wear a shirt. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. He didn't. But listen, when you played for the NHL, you can do whatever you want. Anyway, he told us this great story about how he would play his dad, and he would do it for money, and like that was how he got into gaming. But how he bonded with his father, and we even joked with him that a lot of his competitive nature. I wouldn't say it was built from that, but it showed in that environment. And we joked with him, it's amazing you're a competitive athlete.
Oh yeah.
It at his core, and this is what I'm transitioning to you here. He's a gamer at his core, and it's after speaking to him and watching the stuff that he does as an ambassador, it's obvious why he's involved. But I'd be curious to hear the story about how we tapped into professional athletes and how they aggregated into Gamerz Arena, because it's a big part of what you do.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and we're working with a few great ones. Ty Smith is in the mix, Ben Hutton. And we've been lucky that a few of them were through personal contacts. And it really just started kind of beta testing this earlier of like, okay, yeah, it's COVID. This is before NHL turned back on. Can we organize some tournaments where actually the athletes are playing the sport they play, but in games and with other people? And I think there's something really interesting about how social media will kind of connect people and brands with other people. And you're seeing it with apps like Cameo or these other, so I think it's an interesting way for people to connect with their fan base in so much more of an engaging way.
Right.
And they actually like doing it. It's something they're already doing naturally and organically. So we started just kind of beta testing these small tournaments, and they went so well. Super fun for us to run, super fun for him to play in them, and the fans are loving it, his fans and newer fans. So you're kind of cross-pollinating these different fan bases, and we're running a weekly thing, Taco Tuesday with him. But I really look forward to when we fully roll out what we're up to with Gamerz Arena Plus, leveraging some of my contacts from the film world and just even the representation world of the agencies like CAA, UTA, WME, which is now Endeavor Content. But these people are trying to figure out ways to kind of reach people in engaging ways, and how many of them actually game and are good, or even if they aren't good or whatever, just like get in there and just play.
Yeah.
We want to organize those tournaments. We want to connect those people. And we're already doing it, and we're going to do it on a much larger scale, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. And I think we're going to be able to create a lot of cool content from it too, which is now just like a residual effect.
Yeah.
Well, all I'm going to say is Eddie knows I'm coming for him when NHL 21 comes out. So I'm ready, man. 6 weeks from when we're recording.
There's shooters that came from. He was surprised. Like our Gamerz Arena players don't mess around. Like it's tough. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and we're with Gamerz Arena Plus. We're rolling out like much bigger prize pools and different head-to-head skill betting, and I think we got some cool stuff in the works. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
No, we're excited to see that. That's going to be great.
Yes, no, for sure. So before we started, we actually had a very fun pre-interview. We were talking about a variety of things, but one of the things we were talking about was the future of games and technology and whatnot, and how VR and AR may start to really affect games and kind of be the next step. And so I wanted to bring that back up here now that we're recording, to talk about VR and AR and what do you think that could mean possibly for esports and the like? Because I've seen they've tried it a couple of times, but obviously there's a low install base right now for most VR headsets. So there hasn't been a true competitive community in the VR space. But how far away do you think we are from that? Because I think that will come in the future. We're just not there yet.
It's coming, and a lot of it's here. I think socially, and this is just my own experience, and I've got to beta test a lot of cool stuff, but like if the three of us all had headsets on and we're experiencing something, and I kind of look to Lee for a reaction, he's looking at me, we're not experiencing it together as much. It's more of just a one-to-one, we're in that experience ourselves.
Right.
Personally, I like the idea of more of a group reality setting and an augmented reality where I'm still kind of parts of it are the real world or augmented and mixed with that. But I think there'll be a bunch of different subgenres and niches, just like we've seen in gaming. How you have all these different versions and everyone kind of finds their niche and their thing, and those worlds will exist. But I'm curious to see how people explore that. And I mean, in the film industry, people are trying to figure out ways to get people back in theaters now more than ever, and that's shifting. Right. People don't know the answers to that. But we do. We know the answers. We've discussed that several times on the show. No, go ahead. Man. We'll carve out a couple hours to talk about.
That's fine. We have some ideas. Yeah.
But I think AR mobile games based on recognizable film IP. I think we're going to see some really cool stuff in that. I mean, we already have. I mean, the whole Pokemon Go thing was came out of nowhere. People weren't ready for it. They're like,
still is, man. We play. I play that a lot.
Yeah, and the engaging augmented reality in educational settings or for certain industries, I think will be really cool. And just the way, I mean, it's like Magic School Bus. Like you're going to be able to just experience and learn and play in those worlds, and it is going there. It's going to get there. So yeah, I'm curious to see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, one of the key cornerstones, I think, for VR and AR, at least early on, before it even became implemented in gaming, was I remember early Oculus was really finding its its foundation in like military use and medicine and things like that. So I definitely think that it's only, again, we've been saying this for years, but VR and AR has such huge potential on a variety of fronts that I think that it is only going to be a matter of time before that user base expands and that we get to the point where we have more options with movies and music and video games, of course, with it.
For sure.
Yeah,
so
I can tell you
will be this kind of bridge between, with cinema, you have one author telling you a story. And you're there as an audience to experience that story from their point of view. And then in gaming, you are the hero, you are the protagonist, and you're going through it on your own, making those decisions. I think there might be something in the middle, and I know we talked about that a bit, that exists in the future. I don't know what that is, but I think those two worlds aren't going anywhere. I think the art of storytelling is so old, it's ingrained in our DNA. But that craft has made this craft better, and this craft has made that craft better, and you look at the average blockbuster now, and the CG would not be where it is if it wasn't for gaming and this industry. And
absolutely,
it's so cool to see that tech advance and get.
What's cool about AR and VR is we talked about this too before the show about how timing is so important in business and everything. You know, I remember 10 years ago, Google released something called the Google glasses, or they were talking about it, and it failed miserably. But the concept was brilliant. Was that you would put on glasses and it would temperature, it would tell you everything. You could get so much information, but we just were not ready for that at that time. Another interesting development, and Ray, actually, I haven't even told you about this, but I have seen. So Matt, you might not know this, but I work in the hockey space quite a bit, and I recently saw and heard about a VR hockey trainer that is apparently very, very good. And you put on your headset and you have a stick, and your stick has a sensor, and it simulates like when the puck is past you, you catch it. It feels like it's on your stick. And talk about telling your own story. You're doing the drill and you're deciding the ending. And here's the thing: it's like it was described to me as a training aid, and I'm like, it's a video game. It was blurred though, because here's the thing: it is in fact a training aid. It is in fact giving you situational awareness. We can't always be on the ice.
And Lee, as you just said that, I pictured like anyone who's ever bought in a golf club in the last 10 years.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Later, it's a video game.
Right. So
but it's going to practice your swing, how many yards, give you the reading, that like it's.
Yeah. And the key I'm bringing up is and this is to your point, right, that it's a little bit, not a stretch here, but if you're doing virtual golf in that sense, in that AR, VR reality, you are telling your own story. You're creating the space, right? But it's in a primitive way. So I love the idea of what you're saying is there is a space in the middle. And I also think what you said is the truth. And I actually think that, you know, I'm a silver linings type guy. I think that the pandemic, when it's really gone in the aftermath, we're going to see some really gaping holes in our technological space. Like just how virtual school is going right now, right? Like it's going okay in some places, but it clearly needs to be better. Or the way the world, not just the country, the world has adapted to being at home, like the way we're doing this right now, right? There's a need now for other communication. So to your point, right, if you told me that I could put on a pair of glasses or a headset and be in the room with my mother or my father, you know, or a friend, or this podcast becomes virtual and other people can come put their headsets on and watch us talk in a recording environment or be there live, that's not that far off. And I think that what you just said is when that clicks of you can be in the room with somebody else, that's where this will take off. And I joke all the time with my wife, and she thinks I'm joking, but I'm not. I said, listen, when my son and daughter, I believe this, are like, you know, 20 years old and 17, which is about, you know, 10 to 15 years away, depending on the kid, right? I believe that my daughter starts to be like, I'm going on a date tonight. And they're like, where are you going, son? I'm going to Rome with my girlfriend. I'll be back soon. Headset on, and they'll be in the safety of the room, which will make me happy as their father. Yeah. Right? But I think that's going to happen. I think my kid could totally go to Paris, France. Yeah. Like that.
And maybe sooner than you think with, you know, Moore's law of exponential growth and that. And the success of travel influencers on like Instagram and that, like people want to experience that world, and then they'll decide, okay,
and half of them aren't even there.
This will be my vacation because I've done the you know, or seen it in different times could be interesting.
Right.
You know, separating time and space a bit, but yeah, it's really interesting. But even like Zoom, so like, you know, family members that aren't super tech savvy or that, or just connecting during COVID and the growth rate of Zoom, but people are connecting. It's still that human instinct. And it's like what you were talking about of the newspaper with all the stats and that. People were already doing that. It's just changed. Like you see this thing with Uber. We used to step outside in the rain and like a flag a cab. I'm here. I want you to stop and take me. But we're doing the exact same thing now, but just in a much more efficient way. But it can be misunderstood or dangerous when it happens too quick and other people don't get it and it disrupts other industries. But I think as far as like media, entertainment, and social media, gaming is the future. And like
absolutely
how fast it's growing. I think it's one of the fastest emerging, less understood markets right now, which is exciting for me and my partners as entrepreneurs to be like, okay, how can we be the winners in this space? Because, you know, if I shift gears for a second and I'm a retail investor and I just want exposure to this space, I know esports is going to be big. What do I look at? Who are these companies? And I think some companies have done a really good job of building these kind of lifestyle brands and signing players. And that's cool for me too, because it pushes the envelope. So then it can feel cool to be a part of it. And like what, you know, FaZe Clan or 100 Thieves or those guys. Like it's cool, and I'd love to see it even more inclusive and more representative of people. And we look forward to when we like fully launch and roll out and start signing players. Even our merch line, we're doing a merch line and,
cool.
and doing a bunch of collabs. So we'll send you guys some stuff.
Nice.
Love that.
Yeah.
I love swag.
Right. We're all about the swag.
And man, I'll tell you this, and I wrote this in one of my books, that technology always precedes our ability to harness it and use it. And it's been throughout history. Like even, I always go back to the example of like the Civil War, where we had far more mature weaponry, but we're still walking over an open field at each other, which makes no sense. Or social media and the internet in general has existed now for about 30 years. And, you know, what has it produced? The Kardashians and Tiger King. Like, we're clearly not harnessing that technology to its ability yet. You know, you can have a conversation with anybody around the world right now. We're probably not utilizing that yet. But I think that you are dead on and ahead of this curve. And I think you see that. You have that vision, right, to see that, like, where this is probably going, the direction it's going, and to harness that. And not only that, you've created a community. You've created a place for people to go comfortably to become part of it early on. I think that that's the key. I mean, that's what the great companies have done. That's what the Apples did, right? That's what the Facebooks did. They harnessed an existing idea, they perfected it, and I think you're clearly going that direction.
Thank you. I think we still have a long way to go, but it's been cool to just see it kind of grow and evolve organically. Like, we haven't done any marketing. And the user base has been growing.
That's what Eddie's for, with his shirt off on our show.
But yeah, no, and it's cool now, and like this is kind of the way I look at building companies now, as opposed to when I was younger in my 20s. Before, I'd be like, I want to do this, I want to try this, and I'd be forcing ideas and things into things. Where now I'll kind of step back and just be like, let's take a good close look at this, of how they're playing, what they're saying. Let's listen to them, because they're going to have ideas way better than my ideas.
Right.
And then we're like, okay, maybe they want this, or maybe this, or maybe we'll take the same bracket software, but maybe this company wants to try it out, and we'll organize their tournaments. And then maybe I go to their competing company and I organize their tournaments. And then I play them off each other and say, who's the best of the best?
Right.
And I want to hear them chirp each other. Or like, you know, like that wouldn't have existed without our community right now and them chatting and us organizing these tournaments.
Yeah. The primitive need to compete. I love it.
Yeah.
Speaking of competing, and real quick, I just want to get your thoughts on a couple other things, Matt. One of which, again, sticking in the VR AR space. Big story that we just talked about on the show at our PAX Online panel is what Nintendo's doing. And speaking of guys being at the forefront of technology, right, is typically Nintendo, especially in the video game space, whether you love them or hate them, whether it's been with their light technology all the way back from the Zapper, which later, of course, led to the Super Scope, which led to the Wii, which of course made them billions upon billions of dollars, or what they're doing with Legos now. Virtual Boy was a flop, but the glove,
man. Power glove. I love.
But there's good from every disaster, from the ashes of disaster, grow the roses of success, and Nintendo. And Nintendo is probably the best at doing that. Again, the Wii is a perfect example. And now what they're doing is, and then also they have a great partnership now with Lego. But what they're also doing is, have you heard of the AR Mario Kart they're about to put out in a month? Where it's you take real life gates, set them up on your floor, and you use the Switch as a controller to drive an RC car. And on the screen are all the other characters. Like the RC car is actually moving around in real life, but on the screen are the other 7 racers, your blue turtle shells, your banana peels, your question blocks, as you're actually moving around. Have you seen this? What are your thoughts on it? And yeah,
I'm in. I want to try it. Yeah, like I mean, they've been so great at inventing really fun ways to play, and I love seeing innovative companies just try stuff like that. And it's cool because, you know, companies to act, like all the publishers, the resources that go behind these things to bring them to market and to launch them is so amazing. Whereas like we're really the community and connecting them and organizing the power to the players of their stats and their analytics and how they're battling and what the prizes are. So to see these new games, I'm like, bring it. Awesome. Like the more the better. You know, from the biggest of the big to the new emerging AR stuff, and even to like simple mobile games. Some of my favorite games are like the most simple, but engaging. I remember before COVID, we did like an R&D trip to Portland, and we were playing this game, Killer Bee. Have you guys ever played an arcade game? So it's like 5 players and 5 players, but you're playing the actual physical 5 players on the other side of the machine.
Okay, yeah.
It's literally like so pixely, and you have 2 buttons and a joystick. But the beauty of it is you have to work as a team. So you're talking to each other, and you can have a more defensive strategy, a more offensive strategy. I'll send you guys a link to it. But it was like so simple. But out of this whole bar arcade, everyone was crowded around this thing. And I'm so fascinated by just like, you know, things that have that
effect,
wave, that social trend of like, why is it this and not that? And a lot of it is obviously great ideas, but even the way it's marketed or the way it's presented. But anyways, I was like, what is this? And I get up there and I'm like, oh my God, this game looks like it's like 25 years old. But it was so fun. It was so amazing. It was really simple. So even the super complex stuff, I love. The simple stuff, I love. I just like bring it. The more, the better. I think it's amazing.
And that's a great point too, is that, I mean, games are, again, permeating the social space like never before. Barcades, at least out here in LA, and I know back east in New York too, are getting bigger and bigger, more opening up all the time. It's, you know, it's gone. As we've grown up as gamers, it's gone from getting a slice of pizza and a Coke at the arcade to now you get a Jack and Coke and something from the food truck outside. So, you know, it is fascinating that games are still, even now, bringing everyone together as arcades are kind of going through this revolution in a way.
I remember the arcade experience of like there was this one place, and you put your $5 on the counter and you get your token, and your tokens are good in any game, but it would spit out the tickets, and then you would like redeem the tickets after for like the teddy bear or for whatever, or like I never had that, but like whatever. But the fact that the arcade itself, so you might have been really good at one but not so good at the other two, or someone was better at all 3, or like, because the thing with gaming, a lot of these really big publishers don't communicate to each other because they're competing companies.
Right.
But the fact of making the arcade, the game itself, and the tokens, because it's not sometimes about the prize money or the dollars, it's the value that that's going to bring. So like organizing a tournament of like, it's like a Mother's Day tourney and the kid's going to win some crazy Cuisinart mixer, and then give it to mom for Mother's Day. Like, I bet she's going to be like, stop spending so much time gaming. Like, thanks.
Yeah.
He might
go back to the arcade, get me another one. Yeah.
Yeah, right? Like, these are the things that brands are like scratching their heads of, like, a pop-up ad, beat it.
Right. Yeah.
Name on a tourney, okay, maybe. Integrated stuff is getting interesting. So like brand integration.
Yeah,
it's
gamification.
Like placement, and we're seeing it. We're seeing it in these worlds and universes. People are selling billboards and selling space in there and stuff. But if there can be something with a meaningful emotional response, with a prize that someone worked hard to win and then someone receives it, that's, if I was in the brand's shoes, I was like, I would want to be a part of that. And if it's thoughtful and well thought out, so it's like a marketing strategy in itself. So those are some of the things we're looking at with just our prizing itself. It doesn't have to be just money, or even skill-based betting. What if they're wagering like, you got to do my laundry for a week, or you got to, even if they're not in the same city, just like I won, like, go make me that, it's just like, that betting is so fun.
Matt, one of the things, because I work with a lot of brands, I have my brands, and we talk about this all the time. I always say this to them, customers buy, fans buy in.
Yes.
And I always explain to them the idea of, number one, trust. Like, you have to build trust, because trust inevitably leads to loyalty. And I said loyalty is the highest denomination of social currency. Yeah. And I was trying to tell them that when you're working with another brand or you're trying to engage an audience, I said you must garner loyalty, and it's not something you can fake. Right? It's something that you have to get involved in. You have to get in the trenches and create that community. So, and this is kind of rounding out the conversation too. Like, I'm a big believer and I'm a big proponent of community building. And I actually really enjoy doing it. Even with my own companies, we've invested in really finding good community builders. It's not just a side job. Like, remember when social media managers first came out, and it's like, oh, there's 20 grand a year and you're just nothing. I just need someone to post on my Facebook page. We did the opposite. We thought, I want you to build a community, and we're going to invest in you. And we're going to invest in the community. But that keyword, like you said, if you're a brand, that loyalty aspect built on trust of be part of our mission, of our statement of what it is that we stand for. So with any brand, even a gaming brand, it's like, look, this is who we are. Do you want to be part of that with us? 100%. And I think that's what most brands miss. right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, big brands don't do that. And then I go like this: okay, you drink Pepsi or Coke. Within 5 seconds, I'm a Coke.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Because this, and this. So you're loyal to Coke. And then I got them, right? And I mean, even though Pepsi has won every taste test there is, I always found this amazing.
Coke's marketing campaigns
Right.
around the holiday season and Christmas, or just their beachy outdoor volley, like it's just a lifestyle. It's like a whole vibe.
You're part of it.
That's just exactly what you said. Like it's
Right.
that vibe that it sums up, and the same thing could be said for Apple. You just know what you're going to get. Like when the iPod came out, like everyone was doing MP3 players. This isn't an MP3 player; it's an iPod.
Yeah,
and it's an MP3 player.
Yeah.
But it was designed differently, and it was called an iPod, and it was so well marketed and branded, and it was like
the simplicity.
Any other MP3 player beat it. I want
the simplicity of it. It's 1,000 songs in your pocket. No one had said that before. It was brilliant. And then I remember when he did the iPhone.
Design, simple. It's not busy.
I remember watching the iPhone reveal. Like, it's a phone. It's a device. Yeah. I remember him showing us things. It's all those things together. Yeah. And like that's what Jobs always did so well. He's like, you already know what it is, right?
Yeah.
And like just going back to Coke real quick, just to prove the point, right? For the younger listeners, Pepsi used to do this thing called the Pepsi Challenge, right? It was a huge ad campaign in the 90s.
Yeah.
And they would just give people Coke and Pepsi in unmarked cups, and Pepsi would always win. And the statistics show that Pepsi actually does win the taste test almost 90% of the time. But it did nothing for him, the ad. The ad did nothing for him. It didn't give him any more market share. Coke still ruled the space. And that's when they started to realize that, like, we have a better product, and it doesn't matter because the community that Coca-Cola has built on sugar is better.
It's bulletproof.
Even though Pepsi has more sugar. So I just think that speaks to the longer point is Coke speaks to people, right? And Pepsi learned that, and they've obviously changed their marketing since then. But this goes with everything, including games. Like a great game speaks to people that even if it's 8-bit and it's 2020 and you're playing an 8-bit game, right? Because there's a community in that spot. It's me versus you together. We're playing together. We're having a good time. That's the key. That connection. Fans, buy in.
And even just saying, okay, I'm this player. I'm playing this game.
Right.
And those games are going to come and go. They're very timely and cost intensive to make as publishers, and that's that business model. Where I stream here and check me out here, and here, or whatever. Where do they compete? Where do they scrim and just practice and get better and evolve? We want to own that as Alpha Esports and Gamerz Arena and Gamerz Arena Plus with those Plus members, and give them those tools, like whatever they need to connect more, to compete and win, and to get better tools and just have a good time. We want to own that social arena for them.
Love it.
And, there's a few other people in the space doing it, but they're doing it in like one little niche thing or one thing, and they're not kind of combining it. Going back to your comment on like social media managers, a Vancouver entrepreneur, Ryan Holmes, a while ago created a dashboard for themselves originally just to solve a problem. We're going to build this tech. Yeah. So I can time my post. I'll do 6 posts, and then I'll go to the beach, and then it ding, ding, ding posts. And they're like, oh, other people might pay for this. And it was Hootsuite. Yeah.
Hootsuite. A lot of people pay for that.
Yeah.
Dude. And it's like, I looked at that, and I was like, so we built all this bracket tech and this stuff, and companies out there, sometimes they'll have one designated person just on their own time organize the tourneys for the whole office. And then some of them don't, and they might not everyone in the whole company might game or whatever, but like even if some of them do, let them kind of find their niche and start their own little teams and leagues within those communities.
Yeah, and again, you've given a lot of people a voice too. I think that's the other side of this too. You're giving the gamers a voice in the community, and one of the things we do here is we always say no comment left unchecked, right? And so like obviously not every comment gets a response, but we listen, and that's how you community build. And in the gaming industry, it's so easy because they want to talk to each other most of the time. Or if they don't want, even if they don't want to talk vocally, they want to talk through their gameplay.
And the aspiring emerging gamer, not just the pros, not just the enthusiast. That's cool. Props to them. They're really good, and a lot of people want to watch them. But what about everyone else in those?
Yeah, I love that you're cultivating that. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. So as we near a close here, I just want to get we are in the midst of a holiday season here in games. We are on the verge of lots of new consoles, AAA releases. Matt, I just wanted to get your thought. Is there anything in particular you're looking forward to? Not necessarily on the esports front, but any games in particular that you're looking forward to this holiday season? I know we got Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Cyberpunk, all kinds of good stuff coming down the line. You have any thoughts or things you're looking forward to?
I think, you know, what Call of Duty is doing with their whole Warzone series and that battle royale, I love to see that just keep evolving, and you know, people are dropping in, and the way it's connecting it into a social dynamic is, I think, the future of those video games. Yeah. And it's cool to see how battle royales just progressed in the last like 2 years. Like it's wild. So I'm curious to see where it goes. I think with first person shooters, there's been a few, I think it was Battle of Tekov, or it was a Russian name, but where you get shot in your body, instead of just life points or blood draining down, like if you get shot in your leg, you actually limp, or you can't use that leg, or if you get hit in this. So it was a bit more grounded in reality in that. So I'm curious to see how first-person shooters evolve into that. And that Mario game for sure. Like, because I grew up playing Mario Kart. I loved it. And I'm curious to see where that goes. But I mean, I don't get as much time to play physically myself because we're so busy building this company, and I'm watching a lot of other people's streams. But I'm excited for all of it.
Awesome. And then also you mentioned Warzone, obviously, and obviously we got Call of Duty Cold War coming too. But something as we touch on, because another a lot of sports games as part of Gamerz Arena. Of course, we talk about Eddie playing NHL and whatnot. But something that we've pitched before on the show is the idea, especially with next generation, about, and you mentioned also earlier, games as a service that's starting to get thrown around a bit more. Destiny's kind of taking on that title. The new Avengers game is trying to say that they're part of that aspect. Do you think that sports get you there? Oh, there's the Hulk. There he is. Waiting for the whole episode for those of you who are
Mark Ruffalo or Ed Norton though.
No. This is Eric Bana, if you can believe it. This is the original. Dude, I got this thing in college, like, you know, a lifetime ago. I'm not gonna say how long ago. It was a while back.
But in the movie Hannah.
Yeah, he's a good actor. He just the Hulk script was weak. It's not his
want
fault.
this power? Take it all. So
man.
bad.
Oh, goodness.
I want to see. Remember the comic book where there was all the mini Hulks, the
Old Man Logan, man.
Hulklets. Yeah, I want to see that on screen.
That would be
cool. Logan, I love Logan with Hugh Jackman. Oh my god, it felt like
great. They are making a Hulk trilogy, from what I'm told, with Ruffalo. It's just not scheduled yet. But I was gonna say, when we have you back, we're gonna have to talk extensively about your film career and comic books.
Yes.
This is definitely gonna be a two-parter.
To what we were just talking of film IP and what we're seeing with Marvel and the Avengers in that. Yeah. I think we're gonna see more of that, and I think we're gonna see, because there's a lot of people that are sitting on these libraries and IP that are underutilizing them, and there's a lot of
100%.
really creative, fun, amazing brains that would love to get their hands on that IP and do something with it. So I hope the powers that be and the people that hold those keys kind of open it up a bit and let it go.
Believe me, Ray is hoping the exact same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember it was like, for movies, it was all like Marvel or DC, and I remember being an Image Comics fan and like reading Spawn and Todd McFarlane.
Yeah, there hasn't been a good Spawn game in so long.
Shout out to Image. But then they slowly started opening up the Image Vault, and the rights were a little different with Image comic creators, where they shared in the rights and owned part of it, which was the whole history of him branching out from creating Venom and drawing for Spider-Man to create Spawn. But like looking at the success of like The Walking Dead and like now Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg with The Boys, and all these other old Image IP. But I want to like play in those worlds. I want to
totally
be games in those worlds.
Those are the games that I enjoy the most. I'm a big Star Wars game guy, and I've been playing the Avengers. I love that they've created becoming a bigger and bigger world all the time when I'm playing that game. But yeah, I like the familiarity of the characters that I care about. And that's not a shot at all at other games. It's just like I'm with you on that there's a lot of IPs I'd love to get involved in those worlds and make my own way. And again, the games that tend to come out, like with Walking Dead, like I said, like Telltale Games used to make a lot of those types of games, and they were just okay. They weren't great. They weren't
point and
open
click
worlds.
adventure. Yeah,
but sometimes you get film people that are like, okay, we're gonna make a game.
Yeah.
Or like they need to connect the right people and trust them, and really let them open up.
Well, look, Marvel's done it. I can say that even though the game's only been out a week, I can say that they've done it. They've figured something out.
pretty big.
Yeah. It's understatement.
Well, I mean, and you've got a good team with, like, I mean, Crystal Dynamics. Obviously, that's the guys who made Tomb Raider, or made the past few Tomb Raider games. Like, they know about putting a cinematic flair on action adventure games and exploration. And so far, me and Lee are very much enjoying the new Marvel's Avenger games.
But it's the storytelling, right? Like not to extend this, like, it's the storytelling. Like the Avengers game's not afraid to do a million cutscenes, and I don't mind watching them.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I like about it. And like I said, the game does open up where there's a lot less of that and more gameplay. But like the characters are very real and they're very familiar. And we talked about this in the game. It's not RDJ playing Iron Man, but it feels like Iron Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've really found something here that I hope that can be replicated without getting old or oversaturated in the future.
So
RDJ, that's a good acronym, and it is for the publishers, because I've been in some of the rooms in those conversations. It's a whole other thing to get the likeness or rights to the actors. You got to then talk to their people. But there's so many things you can do without that, or even like you look at the Lego verse and that. It's like it doesn't have to be exact. It's the character. It's the world that we're.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing is obviously Iron Man was around before Robert Downey Jr. He'll be around after Robert Downey Jr. And so he may look similar to Robert Downey Jr. But really, it's just that RDJ looks very similar to Iron Man, and that's why he was cast. So
exactly.
Well, part of the
Tony
reason why
Stark was a really good Tony Stark though, and I love that was the first Iron Man was like kind of an underdog superhero movie, and like Jon Favreau. At the time, people were like, "Oh, you're like scraping the barrel of the superhero genre," and it's like,
it was actually doing the opposite, and now he's saving Star Wars for us. Thank you.
Yes. Speaking of Star Wars, very briefly. We were having a good Star Wars talk before as well. I just wanted to quickly, we are about a month away, about 6 weeks away from Mandalorian season 2. Matt, you're looking forward to it? Any predictions? What are your thoughts, sir?
I'm actually not even done season 1. That's how busy I've been. But it's kind of like when you're savoring yourself, like it's like, you know.
Like it?
Yeah.
It's all good.
I watched the pilot episode and I was like, I'm gonna get so into this that I'm like just wait till I can really get
binge it. Yeah.
All right, I gotta admit this.
I need to binge it.
I gotta admit this live on the air.
It's a whole different ball game now. We're so used to binging.
Yeah.
This is how powerful the Mandalorian was in my space. With the permission of my workforce, we stopped work on Fridays for an hour to watch that as a team. So I turned it into a team bonding experience, but it was more for me than that.
It was just for that Lee to come on the show and talk to me about it.
I gotta do it for work, guys. Sorry, but Matt, make sure you watch it because it does end really great.
Okay, so our second pod, we're gonna dive deep into that.
That's fine.
Yes, for sure. All Star Wars,
Star
Wars special. Yes. Oh, awesome. It could be the Geeks Who Like Sports Star Wars Christmas special.
There you go.
Like it. I'm not singing though, Ray.
I
did that in the last episode.
Yeah, I know that's.
Alpha Esports is like the biggest esports company. Let's just talk about Star Wars.
Did you see the dark saber? Oh
Eddie,
my God.
Eddie, hold on a minute. We're talking about Boba Fett, okay? Boba
made
Fett.
Yoda cute and cuddly, and it was genius. And people are like, "Oh,
it is 1,000,000% genius." I can't wait till that Baby Yoda turns bad.
Yeah, like who wanted to snuggle old Yoda? I wanted to train with him. Like I wanted him on my back. You know,
well, make the augmented reality game and let's do it,
dude.
How much is Star Wars IP nowadays?
Those like spears that would come up and just like you'd have to with the saber.
Yeah.
Listen,
actually, sure they did that in Vader Immortal, in the VR game Vader Immortal, where the training spheres would come out. If you did the lightsaber dojo, which was a second mode, it was you just having to deflect the laser bolts.
And how was it? Did they do a good job with it? It was good.
I'll say that, look, I played the PSVR version, which was a port of the Oculus version, and I think that it feels more like an early VR game. It's kind of buggy. It's not. It wasn't great at picking up a lot of my movements. I will say this: if you want a really great VR experience, play the Iron Man game for PSVR.
I heard about that. A few people have told me.
That was phenomenal. That is easily my favorite VR game of the past couple of years. I was absolutely hooked. I beat it in like 2 days. I couldn't stop playing it, and it was just it felt great. It felt great. I felt like Iron Man. I felt like it was just perfect.
Guys, hear me out. Matt, you're in the film business. Let's just say we all go to Disney and be like, hey, let us do what we need to do, and we'll just make the games.
We're gonna have an offline chat when we're not recording.
I was gonna say, I have a great idea for a video game.
And we'll walk in there and just kick in the door like.
What's up? It's us. Yeah, this is the way.
I love it.
Well, I think that is a perfect note to end on, Matt. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. First of many, and stoked to be talking about Alpha Esports and Gamerz Arena as we start to build these things, and can't wait to be back.
Yeah, you have an open invite, my friend. Whenever you have anything you want to talk about with them, we are more than happy to have you back on to talk more games. Obviously, we are fans, so this is great, man. We really appreciate your time. It means a lot.
Amazing, guys. Thank you so much again. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. So that does it for this edition of the Geeks Who Like Sports Leaderboard interviews. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next time. Good night.